Hi, my name is Gina Sansevero. I am Vice President of Marketing and Corporate Communications at AtlasIED. And today, my colleague Michael Peevler, our VP of Sales, and I would like to talk to higher ed technology managers about the interaction between campus-wide communication systems and classroom technologies. I came from a background in higher ed classroom technologies. I've worked in the audiovisual industry for about 15 years and always working with higher ed technology managers to develop their policies and standards for classroom technologies. When Michael and I came to AtlasIED, we saw a historic lack of presence in the classroom technologies arena with regard to AtlasIED. And so I'll let Michael tell a little bit more about his background and what we've learned since coming here. Michael?
Absolutely. Thanks. It's great to be here this morning. I'm Michael Peevler, Vice President of Sales. I was an education major and taught my first 8 years out of university. And so I was in the classroom. It was middle school and high school, so not university, but certainly understand the dynamic of being in front of a classroom and managing students, etc. When I moved into the audio video space, I ended up joining a company called AMX. AMX was there for 17 years, and I was the Vice President of Global Education Sales during a large part of my tenure there. And got an opportunity to really be in classrooms and higher education classrooms all around the world. So all throughout the United States and about 22 countries outside the United States. Got to understand the difference in technology and dynamic, but it all really came down to a shared challenge of instruction and keeping folks' attention. We've seen a big evolution since that time, since I left, with the integration of security more into the classroom. And so that kind of brings us to Gina and I coming to Atlas about 2.5 years ago. Both of us came from the higher education classroom space. I knew the instructional technology side really well, but saw that AtlasIED didn't have a lot of presence in that space. Gina, you want to share a little bit about what we discovered?
Sure. So what we discovered is that we understood instructional technology. We understood less where Atlas's fit was. And so that fit comes down to really understanding mass communication systems and the difference between mass communication and mass notifications. We want to help you understand, number one, the difference between the two, and number two, how that impacts your classroom experience, and also how to use your voice to have more of a say on campus when it comes to mass communications, campus-wide communications, and that shared experience between IT, security, and AV.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So unfortunately, the security is a much bigger issue today on campuses than it was 5, 10, even 15 years ago, right? And we've seen it become a big part of the presence across campus through a number of horrific accidents, but also related to weather and related to medical issues and all. We tend to think of kind of the traumatic event, the shooter, et cetera, but there's a number of reasons why mass communication and mass notification has become an important part. And AtlasIED plays a huge role in that story, and we believe can play a huge part in the classroom. So let's start by talking about the difference between the terms mass communication and mass notification. So when we talk mass notification, there's actually a legal implication there, and that's related to something called NFPA 72. Now, NFPA 72 is a fire code, and it says that systems have to have redundancy and have to be backed up and have to be measured so that we can ensure that every endpoint is firing off as it's supposed to. And in its design. Mass communication is essentially the same thing, but without that requirement of that additional redundancy. And so while a number of schools that we work with are looking for a mass notification system, because of the price difference, what they really want is a mass communication system in case they run into an issue. And so we really focus, we have the ability to do both. We do mass notification in a majority of the large airports across the world already. So we have that capability, but we tend to talk in terms of mass communication. It's a little more affordable, and it tends to meet the requirements that most of our university customers are looking for. So let's talk real quick about one other definition that I think is important to understand, and that's on-prem and off-prem. It's certainly a term people know, but it's the idea of having a solution that can either do notification to something like this, right, to my cell phone. That would be off-prem. No matter where I go, I can get notifications. So I might be tied into it. You all get notifications and alerts, that kind of stuff on your phone already for different apps. Or it could be on-prem, which is the actual premise, right? The actual campus itself. And so that's kind of one of the big differences that's important to understand. So let's talk about why we believe the classroom technology managers have a role to play in this conversation. And in fact, are being impacted by it today and don't even necessarily realize it. So we're going to start by looking at some statistics, and I apologize, I'm going to have to look down for a second because I'm going to read my notes here because these are actual data from campus security, but I don't have them all memorized. So first of all, in a recent survey, came out the end of 2020 of universities across the United States, campus safety determined that 1 in 4 universities had a mass communication system on campus. Okay, 1 in 4. That's 25% for those of you doing your math at home. 22% said the solution that they have is completely or somewhat ineffective. Not really an uplifting statistic. 52% are concerned about restrictions in certain environments. That could be related to cell tower effectiveness or to internet access for their system to actually work. 51% said if they have more than one system, they're actually integrated, and only 80% of the eligible participants are actually signed up. Now, here's where it got really interesting for me. The majority of the solutions out there are they're text. They are off-prem solutions designed to get to all the students, which makes sense, right? I have 2 students, 2 children that are in university, and so it makes total sense, right? Get them in the dorm room, get them at their apartment, or get them anywhere on campus. But we know a number of times that people aren't actually aware of their phone, right? Whether they're asleep, whether they're in a classroom, maybe asleep in a class. No, I'm just kidding. Whether they're actually, taking a test or something and they have their phone put away in their bag, and so they can't see it. So the interesting thing, again, is text is the most popular, but in the feedback, the single biggest complaint was outdoor audio. That seemed to be the biggest issue, right? In people that had these mass communication solutions, there was a very high level of frustration or unhappiness related to outdoor audio as part of that mass communication.
And Michael, those survey results are really telling. I'm going to take a step into classroom audio right now, and that's where traditionally AtlasIED is probably most prevalent is the audio side of things. So when we talk about classroom audio and instructional technologies, we talk about voice lift and we talk about audio amplification. So when we talk about those things, the first thing that comes to mind are usually ceiling speakers. Ceiling speakers are those pieces of audiovisual technology that don't tend to follow the typical life cycle planning, right? When you're upgrading your audiovisual equipment, you're on a 5 to 7 year, sometime a 10-year life cycle planning. And speakers are generally thought of when they fail or when you're walking past one and you hear this really annoying crackle, right? But the interesting thing is that the one technology, the one instructional technology that's actually been tied to increase student outcomes, so student success, retention, and comprehension, is the audio. So why do we tend to discount one of the most important parts of the technology experience within the classroom? Often you don't realize how bad the ceiling speakers are aging, and ceiling speakers don't go from on to off. That's not how they age. They're kind of like my nephew. I got to see my nephew this weekend, and the last time I saw him because of COVID times was about a year ago. And goodness, I said to my sister, he has grown so much. And she goes, "Oh, I didn't even notice. I'm with him every day." Same thing can be said for the intelligibility of a ceiling speaker. You don't realize how bad it's getting if you're listening to it every day. You understand how unintelligible it becomes when you hear it next to a ceiling speaker that's been replaced. And so when we talk about these analog audio configurations, there are things that we can do to enhance or to upgrade ceiling speakers, even if you don't have the budget for them. Michael, I'm going to let you take that because let's move into digital audio.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is where we believe Atlas IED really fits a gap here and fits the expertise of the technology managers. So IPX is a product family for us that we believe fits this gap. So this is a SIP-enabled IP endpoint, okay? And that's going to be a really key phrase that we're going to talk about here in a second, because people tend to think of IP speaker. Now, Gina was just talking about the degradation of audio. Having a solution that's in the classroom, which is a high point of potential conflict, and having that actually have a good quality audio can be the key to bridging that gap and keeping a high level of intelligibility both in the classroom and throughout the rest of the campus. Let me introduce you real quick though to what an IP endpoint is, because I think it's really important to understand the difference. And to do that, we're going to look at one example of one product from Atlas IED, and that's a product called the IP-SDMF. Now, like a lot of products, if you understand the acronym, right, then you understand what this product actually has involved in it. So, and you'll see that we call it an endpoint instead of a speaker because it's so much more than just a speaker. So IP meaning it's IP based, right? S meaning that it's speaker. So our IP endpoints have an 8-inch coaxial speaker that's full definition with excellent speech intelligibility. The D stands for display. So you'll see here that we have a high resolution LCD. It's an industrial grade LCD. It can display the clock, rolling text. It can be weather. It's ADA compliant. So if there's a message that needs to scroll across it, it can. We tend to keep those messages short because nobody in case of emergency is going to read a long message. But it does have the ability, as you saw on the previous slide, to change color depending on the emergency, if it's weather or fire or something else. So the M stands for microphone, meaning that this is a full duplex device, meaning it's got great microphone built into it for full talkback. So you have the ability to have that ambient noise reduction and communicate back into the system to whoever's on the head end without having to have any additional interface. And the F stands for flasher, and that's at the very bottom. You'll see that that's an LED flasher. That's an industrial grade LED, multicolor and multi-flash rate. And again, really important as we look at ADA compliance, that we have a visual notification for those who might be hearing impaired. So you can see that this product is much more, but let's look again from a classroom technology and instructional technology standpoint. Let's look at what else is in here. We've got an integrated digital amplifier. It's Class D technology for, designed ideally for loudspeaker, right? It's a single cable installation that's PoE plus enabled. So no additional or separate power cable needed. It just runs over your network, all right, all powered from your switch. It's got local connectivity for line in and line out. So you could take a teacher's audio and put it in through a wall plate into the system, and then that audio could drive out. And then if you look, you see an acronym PFMS port. That is power for more speakers. That's the ability to drive up to 7.5 watts on a PoE plus switch to drive additional speakers in that classroom. So now not only are you getting one input, but you're getting an amplifier with local connectivity and the power to be able to drive additional ports. Now, one other thing about this that makes it ideal from an integration standpoint, and that is the general purpose input-output control ports. That allows you to tie other devices in. So we've seen security devices, we've seen panic buttons, we've seen security cameras, all kinds of things that can be tied in so that when an action or activity is tracked could be motion detection, could be, again, a panic button, then it can trigger a reaction not only through this device, but over the entire system, because we're over the entire network. Now, you may be saying, hey, Michael, that sounds cool. And now I understand the difference between an endpoint and a speaker. What about the areas where I need something bigger? Well, that's where we bring in our IP to analog gateway. And this is actually going to allow you to tie into your standard 70 volt and 8 ohm speakers, right? So it actually will take everything off your network, right? You can see it's network ready, PoE plus enabled. And then it's going to tie in and allow you to drive that, because the experts say that there's no part of campus that should not be covered with your mass communication solution. And that means the walkways, that means outside the fields, that means stadiums, practice fields, all of those areas that need to be covered, and they need to be covered with one solution. Now, again, it can be tied to both on-prem and off-prem, so that notification is going to cell phones as well as throughout the entire campus. But you want to make sure that you have an automated response that can be simply triggered and all come from one system. So this is what a system might look like. Here's a really simple example. You can see you've got an emergency switch to trigger alerts. You've got an amplifier in here to drive your analog speakers. And so you've got a pretty simple system to go from your IP network out to all of your analog solutions. And when we look at a complete solution, it looks like this. Now, there's one piece on here I want to talk about really specifically, and then I'm going to give you an overview. So as you see, the front end of a number of these systems from a user interface standpoint is something like a phone. You see a VoIP phone on the left-hand side, or you see PCs that could trigger it, or you even see mobile device that could be running a SIP app. That message is going to go into the network, and then it's going to go out to all of the endpoints. And so that's important to understand. At the very top, you see GCK. So GCK is a product called GlobalComm. That's an AtlasIED product, and we use that to actually drive all of the behavior, set up notifications, emergency tones, all of that. That's where all the intelligence resides. Now, we also partner with a company called SingleWire, and they have a fantastic product. A number of campuses, universities, healthcare environments, et cetera, use this product. And so we work great with any of those. And in fact, we work great with any other. There's a number of other manufacturers whose products are out there and can function as the head end of our system. And they speak over the network to our IP endpoints. Lastly, if you look at the right-hand side, I want to show you that we talked about that one speaker, that SDMF, but you can see we've got a number of other endpoints. So at the top, you'll see endpoints with visual displays. So you'll see a dual-sided for the hallway. That's dual-sided with a flash underneath and speaker on both sides. You've also got a single-sided LED. And then at the bottom, you see some of the other different interfaces. And again, we've got about 14 different physical formats to fit your space. But you'll see a vandal weather resistant proof, so that can go outside and can't be tampered with. That's the vandal proof, so nobody can take it apart so it doesn't work. You've got the SDMF that you saw. You've got ceiling tiles, right? So it can be in a 1x1 or 1x2 and a 2x2, sorry, format. And then you also see something even as simple as a pendant, which could go into a large open area, cafeteria, student union building, that kind of thing. The point is the system, if you have the right head end, whether that's something like SingleWire or GlobalComm, our solution, can then tie into your existing network infrastructure. And as the audio specialist on campus, being the classroom technology manager, you can help guide and drive these solutions out to ensure that your campus has the right thing that you need. And it's a great way for you to use your expertise, because I guarantee most of the campuses I've ever been on, there's no one else on staff, whether that's in the IT department or the security department, which are the only two departments that are campus-wide, right? And the two, by the way, departments that are necessary for this, they're the only two departments doing this. And again, this is happening already. And that's the important thing to understand. As classroom technology managers, I think a lot of people don't realize that this move is coming not from the AV side, but it's coming more from the security side. And I've met higher ed technology managers, and I know you have as well, Gina, who they're working in the classroom all the time and they've got a limited budget and they're trying to build the best instructional model. And nowadays it's all about how do we do hybrid so we can teach in class and the students at home can actually still participate because of COVID and those kind of things. And that's not going to go away. COVID is, obviously, hopefully, but but the idea of remote instruction from the classroom isn't going to go away. So they're focused on that. And then all of a sudden they come in on a Monday morning and there's something new on the wall in their room. And they're like, where is this from? And it was a security integrator, not even someone they potentially knew, who came and installed it, or an IT integrator. And they came in and they put it on the network. And so what we're encouraging is for those technology managers to really dig in, get involved, and go figure out how to be part of that. It may get you more technology because it's coming out as a security budget as opposed to the classroom technology budget. And it may be able to be integrated into your classroom so you actually create a better instructional environment consistent with what Gina said. So with that, I'll kind of turn it back over to you, Gina. Sorry to go on a rant, but hopefully this kind of makes sense of how you can easily take something like IPX, integrate it into your classroom, into your instructional technology environment, but also become the audio expert on campus to cover those outdoor areas to ensure that customers have a better, or that your school has a better outdoor audio experience than the people we heard in that campus survey or campus safety survey.
Yeah, Michael, I think you're spot on here. So over our careers, we've talked to many instructional technologists. We've talked to many technology managers who work both campus-wide and within specific classroom buildings. And what we continuously hear is, number one, budgetary concerns, always, right?
Yep.
And then number two is, well, but when it comes to outdoor spaces or when it comes to security technologies, we're not invited to, most of the time, even vet the technology specialist who's coming in to do the designs or the technology itself to ensure that it works well with our classroom technology systems. When you're talking about emergency communications, it even extends beyond the audio systems. It extends beyond what you can hear to digital signage, to the projectors within the classroom and the communication that they're able to provide. And very often, if those two systems, the security system and the classroom technology system or the AV system across campus are two disparate systems, you're not utilizing them to the best extent that you can. The AV department, the classroom technologies department must be involved in this conversation. And so the IP endpoints then become the conduit to using your voice to have a seat at that table, right? Those IP endpoints are security facing, IT facing, AV facing. They're all relevant to those three departments on campus. And Michael, to your point, when you say security and IT are the only two departments that provide a consistent experience across campus rather than building by building, I mean, AV generally falls under IT now in many in many campus hierarchical kind of structures. So there's a natural progression there to be at that table. And then finally, what I really love that you said was, because these IP endpoints and the headends that run them are security, mostly considered security accessories or security technology. And unfortunately, security is one of those departments that are never underfunded. That becomes your ability as a classroom technology manager to be able to say, well, I can get highly intelligible audio. I can get new speakers by attaching to this security technology budget. And so we've seen a lot of light bulb moments, right, with these technology managers who say, I can get new speakers and I can make sure that my students are have the audio amplification that they need in order to ensure success in the classroom. And then you're telling me that this all kind of falls under my security budget. Is this too good to be true?
And the answer is yeah. I mean, it's happening already. You and I had an opportunity to recently speak to a large group of higher education technology managers. And you know, at the end, we were doing Q&A, and the message that we heard back from a number is, hey, I've recently kind of gotten pulled into this. And the great thing for them is they see their opportunity to be a champion, right? They can be the champion on campus. They're the expert in audio. They have their AVIXA certifications. They have their audio certification, and they have an opportunity to, yeah, expand the capabilities from an instructional standpoint while tying in security. And while they're not the security expert, again, they are the audio expert. And there's a need there. And we've all been on campuses where we've heard poorly spread out audio, dead spots, all those kind of things, all the things in the AV world that we know are absolute kind of sins of audio that can be covered, and the classroom technology folks can absolutely get involved. And so that's it. We want them to be the champions. It's inevitable. It's going to, you know, it's going to happen. We've seen this integration of AV, IT, and security. Not only from a technology standpoint, but from a channel standpoint. And it's happening on campuses. And so the more visibility, the more value they can bring to that conversation, we think the better opportunity they have. So how does AtlasIED fit in that? Well, first of all, we have free design services. So if your campus is looking for a solution, they can reach out to us, no cost whatsoever. There's a portal through our website, through our design services team, and you can go in and have an opportunity to work with them and get an integration or design done based on the recommendations. You're going to need to know some measurements and that kind of thing, but we can tell you what the right kind of product is. We also have product experts all across the country that can help you if you're trying to figure out what's the difference between this one or this one. Do I need something like this? You know, do I need something like Dante, or can I just use something that's more IP network based? We've got experts that can absolutely assist with that. And we want to be there, right? We want to be there to help those instructional managers to tie that voice lift system into their IPX so that the instructor can be heard through that, use the amplifier, drive the additional speakers, create a better experience, knowing that there's going to be an override there if there's an emergency that has to happen. So we've always, you and I and a number of the people we work with, we've always been champions of the classroom technology managers and a fan of them. And we see this integration happening. And so we just want to lead the awareness, the consciousness that there's a fantastic opportunity here for them to step out of their traditional role, to assist their campus, which will mean assisting their students as well. And that we can be part of the technology solution to help fit with that and put them in a much better situation for long-term success.
I love it. As you all can see, Michael and I have a real passion for higher education, education in general, but higher education technology. And so we can become your resources as well. Please feel free to reach out to either of us with any questions, or we can connect you to peers across the country or across the globe. You might be able to kind of pick their brain. Peers who have been through this and who are now on their emergency communications task force on their campus. So please reach out to us. We can be your resource as well.
And don't forget to go to Atlas, www.atlasIED.com. You can look at the Contact Us page. You can find our information, but you can also find your local representatives and your local team. My team, they all work with me. They're all ready and excited to work with you directly. There's more funding than in education than has ever existed. In all the years of being involved in the education space, I've never seen this much money available out today. A lot of it is very security focused. So take advantage of that. Get your upgrades to your facilities. We'll do our best to help you with all aspects of that. The money is out there, the resources out there, the knowledge is out there, the people are there ready to help. Let's go make a match.
And on behalf of myself, Gina Sansevero, and my colleague, Michael Peevler, and the entire AtlasIED team, thank you for joining us today. We hope you found it informative, and if we can do anything to help you, please contact us.